When people think about protein, they picture something specific. Maybe it's cattle drifting across a wide golden field at sunset. Maybe it's a grill sizzling on a Sunday afternoon. Maybe it's a gym bag with a shaker bottle clinking inside. We've built entire identities around how we get protein. But what if everything we assumed about protein, where it comes from, how much land it needs, how long it takes to grow, was built on a set of conditions that are quietly disappearing? And what if the answer to that question has been floating on the surface of ponds since before humans walked the earth? You've already seen it. You've probably walked past it. Maybe you've even complained about it. That green film coating the surface of a quiet pond. The stuff that looks like nature forgot to clean up after itself. Most people call it pond scum. Some have even tried to scrape it away. Here's what almost no one knows. It's not algae. It's not bacteria. It's not some byproduct of pollution. It's a plant, a flowering plant, one of the smallest on Earth. And it may be one of the most nutritionally powerful crops we've ever encountered. It's called duckweed. And the reason we've spent thousands of years ignoring it says more about us than it does about the plant. The protein equation nobody taught you. Let's get into the math, because the math is what makes this jarring. To produce beef, you need an enormous amount of land, either for grazing directly or to grow the corn, soy, and grain that cattle consume. You need water. You need years of time. And throughout that entire process, only a small fraction of the plant protein fed to an animal gets converted into edible animal protein. That conversion is brutally inefficient. You're putting in far more than you're getting out. Duckweed doesn't play by those rules. Under optimal conditions, duckweed can yield more protein per acre, annually, than almost any crop we currently grow at scale. Certain species pack in 35 to 45% protein by dry weight. To put that in context, soybeans, which we've built massive global supply chains around, typically come in at around 36 to 40%, and duckweed can match or exceed that while using a fraction of the resources. It doubles in size in as little as 48 hours. It grows on still water with no soil, no plowing, no annual reseeding. It can be harvested every single day. And depending on the species and growing conditions, it contains essential amino acids, iron, zinc, and a range of micronutrients that make it nutritionally competitive with conventional protein crops in a way that surprises even researchers who first encounter the data. This isn't theoretical potential. This is measured output. The middle step no one talks about. Here's the concept that changes how you see this. When we eat beef or chicken, we're not really eating the sun's energy directly. We're eating it after it's passed through an animal, after a massive amount of it has been burned off, keeping that animal alive, warm, moving, and breathing. The animal is the middle step. Duckweed skips the middle step. It converts sunlight and water into protein directly. There's no inefficient conversion layer. What grows is what you get. That's not a small detail. It's a fundamental difference in how the food system works, and it explains why, per acre, duckweed can produce protein at a scale that grazing animals simply cannot match. It doesn't just grow, it cleans. Here's where the story gets genuinely interesting. Duckweed doesn't just produce protein. It actively absorbs nitrogen and phosphorus from the water it grows on. These are the same nutrients that cause toxic algal blooms when agricultural runoff floods rivers and lakes. In controlled systems, duckweed can be grown on nutrient-rich wastewater, livestock wastewater, agricultural runoff, and it pulls those excess nutrients out of the water while simultaneously generating harvestable biomass. Think about that. A crop that feeds people and remediates water at the same time. This isn't a side benefit. Researchers and agricultural engineers are increasingly interested in duckweed specifically because of this dual function. It doesn't just sit in the system, it improves it. So why don't we eat it every day? Fair question. If duckweed is this efficient, this nutritious, and this low impact, why isn't it on every plate? The honest answer is, infrastructure, culture, and capital don't move fast. Modern agriculture was engineered over centuries for land-based crops and livestock. The entire supply chain, the seed distributors, the equipment manufacturers, the commodity traders, the grocery distribution networks, was built around wheat, corn, soy, and animal protein. Rebuilding that for an aquatic crop requires investment that doesn't exist yet at scale. Second, perception is powerful. Duckweed grows on ponds. It doesn't look like food to Western eyes. Food culture is shaped by what we grew up seeing on our plate, not by what an efficiency analysis tells us is optimal. Third, regulatory frameworks haven't caught up. Novel protein crops face scrutiny that conventional ones don't, even when conventional ones are, by any objective measure, far more resource-intensive. But here's what's worth noting. Duckweed isn't new to humans. In parts of Southeast Asia, certain species, particularly wolffia, sometimes called water meal, have been eaten for generations. In Thailand and Laos, it appears in local dishes as a completely ordinary ingredient. The idea that duckweed is inedible or exotic is a cultural assumption, not a biological one. And commercially, the interest is growing. Companies in Europe and the United States are beginning to explore large-scale duckweed cultivation for both human food and animal feed. Research programs across universities are publishing on its nutritional profile, its growth optimization, and its environmental interactions. The scientific community is paying attention. The bigger question this forces: duckweed is interesting, but the real story isn't the plant. The real story is what duckweed reveals about us. We built our food system around a specific era: cheap land, abundant water, stable climate, an expanding frontier. We optimized for the conditions we had, and we built cultural meanings, economic systems, and dinner table traditions on top of those optimizations. But the conditions are shifting. Arable land is under pressure. Water scarcity is increasing. The environmental cost of food production is being priced in ways it never was before. In that context, every assumption we have about what protein looks like, how it grows, what it costs, how much space it needs, deserves a second look. A plant smaller than your fingernail, doubling every 2 days, growing on water, producing protein at a scale that cattle can't touch. That's not a science experiment. That's a question. A question about whether efficiency, not tradition, is what we should be building our food future on.